Hello, friends. I am Vida Amor de Paz, and this is our first episode of the Best Kept Secrets podcast. So I would like to see if we can all sit tight because we're going to be learning lots of interesting things. You know, millions of people drive through Florida every year, but they truly do not know the secrets hidden within the Everglades. Today, we're speaking with a man that has spent his life exploring all over this extraordinary wilderness. And from alligators to panthers to Gladesman traditions, all hidden stories. So we're welcoming Marshall Jones. Welcome.
Hello. Great to be here, Vita. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm happy. He runs Max Fish Camp Glades airboat tours. And this podcast is a preamble of our future TV series. And he's going to be part of it too. One show for TV that we're going to be doing very, very soon. So I have many questions for you. I want you to talk to me about so many secrets. One of them is people think that the Everglades is a swamp. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why is it a swamp? It's more than a swamp.
That's correct. So the Everglades consists of multiple different unique ecologies. While part of the Everglades is a swamp, the majority of the Everglades at large is technically a connective body of water with a landscape that is temporarily flooded and temporarily dry throughout different seasons of the year. And the ecology is very dependent on those ever-changing water levels for the migration of the fish, the birds, the turtles, the alligators, and all the fur-bearing animals which exist here in the Everglades. The changes within the depth of water throughout the seasons make up a dramatic difference in the quantity and the location of the wildlife, as well as water quality throughout the ecology.
Okay, and why do people call it the river of grass? Can you explain that to me?
So the River of Grass is a loose translation of the Native American Creek word Pahokee, which means grassy waters. And so Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who was very staunch pioneering woman down here in South Florida, who's really responsible for helping to create Everglades National Park, she was just a real staunch advocate for Everglades conservation, one of the earliest people in that field, in that realm. And through her relationship with the indigenous tribes that were here, meaning the Seminole and Miccosukee tribes, she heard through their tongue, their language, the word Pahokee, and she would ask over and over, what does that really mean? And they explained it to her as best they could, that it meant grassy waters, and she took it in her own guise and said that it means the river of grass, because different times of the year, the Everglades, the grassy waters, the water actually flows like a creek across the entire width of the Everglades. And that could be, anywhere between 50 and 85 miles wide, where the water would flow as one unified creek during the hydro period of the year, this time of year, actually.
Okay, how did you first get connected with the Everglades? Did you grow up at the Everglades when you were a child?
Well, in fact, I did. I was born and raised here in the Everglades. My family's lived here in Wildlife Conservation Area 3B, Francis Taylor Wildlife Management Area, for 5 generations. And I learned how to walk, how to run, swim, ride a bike, fish, hunt, and everything else a young boy could possibly ever learn to do right here in the Everglades. And I compare it to a little bit of a kind of a Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, Mowgli, and Tarzan all muddled together. And that was, if you think of all the highlights of those different characters, their stories, their landscapes they live in, and the relationship with the land and the wildlife, that's how my life was growing up and how it still is today. And I try to make sure that through conservation efforts that my children have the same capabilities in their lifetime.
Good thing. To me, you're the Indiana Jones of the Everglades. No doubt about it. Okay.
Thank you.
So, there are probably stories that come up and things that you learn that are more interesting than living in a city. What is the difference, you think? Do you learn more where you are than in a city?
So living in the wilderness, living in natural landscapes, regardless of whether it's the Everglades or anywhere in the globe, any ecology in the world, you learn to adapt to an ever-changing uh, remoteness with the landscape, with the weather, with water, and as you're growing up, you're experiencing dangers that are natural dangers, but not man-created dangers typically. So it's a very wholesome and holistic way to grow up and way to live. Whereas when you live in an urban area or within perhaps a metropolis, um, the concrete jungle, as a lot of people call it, it's a whole different parameter, a whole different set of parameters of inherent dangers and qualities of life. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have streets. We don't have a local park. The natural broad landscape is our native park. We choose to consume some of the native plants and animals for sustenance. It just has a culturally significant way of life and maintaining our family's heritage. In the urban areas, it's very difficult to forage from the landscape. It's very difficult to get outside of those lines of boundaries, such as streets and sidewalks and vertical elevator shafts and in the city, everything is very three
Superficial, I would
dimensional.
say.
I'm
Superficial.
sorry.
I would say superficial. You know, when
Oh,
you
absolutely.
where you are, I think that it enhances your perception of what life is really all about. So yeah, I agree totally with you. And I I wonder if there is a story that has been passing through generations for your family to other generations behind you or in front of you for the future. Tell me about any story that you can think of. A
Well,
story that has been passed
this
down
this
through
so
generations.
this the story is one that is constantly evolving, morphing, and continuing. And the story really is just the fact that my family lives in and off of the land here in the Everglades, and that we coexist with the wildlife and the ecology here. Uh, there isn't a singular like story that is like a legacy story per se that I would say gives resonance to our existence here more than the fact that we are taught to respect the land, taught to live with nature in harmony as best as possible, and to try our best to leave a place cleaner than we find it, and to make sure that we educate people about the importance of really just experiencing what we are able to call our home, and that is the Everglades.
I was reading about the Gladesman, and I was reading that there are very few. You're one of them, like one of the last Gladesmen. They have been gone. Why? Why do you think you're
So,
still there? What hangs you in there?
so the Gladesman culture is a early subset of pioneering people that was considered to be the cracker culture, the early cowboys here in Florida. When Florida was purchased and ultimately became a state, Florida was left with 350 years worth of cattle and horses that the Spaniards left behind. And the crackers drove cattle from north to south, from Jacksonville all the way down eventually to Lake Okeechobee and then into the Everglades. And from Okeechobee down here into the Everglades, that subset of the cracker culture that settled here became the Gladesman culture. the landscape that they relied on to provide sustenance and safe harbor and a unique way of life has changed dramatically over the last century, a little bit over a century. And so many of the early Gladesman families have either died off and their kids decided to move away from the mosquitoes, or um, the landscape itself was just bought up by special interest groups, Army Corps of Engineers, South Florida Water Management District, or the state itself, the state of Florida. And so we're very fortunate and very blessed that my family lives in a pre-existing conservation area. When I say pre-existing, now my family has lived here since long before, twice the amount of time this has been a conservation area. But were this area not deemed a conservation area back in 1956, I don't believe that we would have the same protections afforded to us that have allowed us to live, work, and play here like we have over the last 95 years that my family has been here. We're extremely fortunate and thankful for the fact that we're able to call this our home and to raise our future generations here. My roots run very deep, and I couldn't imagine having grown up anywhere else, nor do I want to live anywhere else, to be honest.
I envy you. I wish I was there. And listen, I imagine you have a lot of encounters with lots of wildlife. Which is the most spectacular encounter you've ever had? Can you think of one?
Well, there are quite a few. There's not just one, perhaps, but as a child or adolescent growing up here, I learned to get close to nature, to trust that we would be safe, because, like the Bible says, when God created man, He gave us dominion over all creatures.
Yeah.
Learning that, being raised in in truly a Christian household, and reading and understanding the Bible growing up as a very young child, it made a great impact on my ability to feel comfortable in the wild and feel comfortable with predators. So while growing up, I had very close encounters with alligators that I swam with bobcats, foxes, panthers, deer, even bears.
Anything? They didn't do anything to you? They didn't attack you at all? Bear with me. Don't leave. We're going to continue with many more questions for Marshall in the Everglades after the commercial break.
So going back to your previous question about the difference in being raised here versus in the city, and different experiences. Being raised in the wild, you learn how to connect with nature, and you learn how to communicate with nature in a way that living in the city you cannot possibly understand. And I explain this to people almost every day about the fact that we are in such a unique mindset and physical action daily, where we interact with nature in a way that is truly a relationship. We have animals here that come and go seasonally, and they know us, and we know them when they come back. We have animals that also choose to stay here that would normally migrate, and they choose to stay here because they've made it their home year round, and they feel comfortable with us because we don't put pressure on them. We simply just create a level of communication and trust. And so over the years, there have been numerous alligators that my mother swam with. One in particular we called One-Eyed Joe. And then many years passed. My brother and I began swimming in the canal at just 3 years old. And by the time we were about 11 years old, there was a gator that we called Smiley that stuck around for around 10 years, maybe 11 years. And Smiley was replaced by Sneaky Pete. Sneaky Pete was on a TV show called Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern. And we had a great relationship with Sneaky Pete for a number of years. I think it was 6 or 7 years. And then he moved on. And then Elvis came into the picture. And all of these gators that I mentioned were alligators that I say we because I'm a twin, my twin brother and myself would swim with these alligators. We could communicate with them. We could make verbal sounds and hand gestures, and they would respond in a way much like an animal, but a trained dog. And we
Amazing.
nicknamed
Oh,
yes,
cool.
we
Yes.
nicknamed alligators water dogs, and those water dogs have a demeanor and disposition much like that of a typical domesticated dog, and you learn their body language through their body. You learn their mindset through their body language and their posturing, and you can determine which ones are safe and which ones are not. It just takes a little experience.
Did, did you ever encounter a real rare species? Which one do you think has been the rarest one?
You know, I hate to say this, but the first thing that comes to mind when you just asked me that was an invasive snake that nobody's probably heard of called the elephant trunk snake.
Wow. No, I've never heard.
It's from Southeastern Asia, and it literally looks like an elephant's trunk. And they live in bodies of water. They're truly an aquatic snake. They come up to take a breath and go back down, kind of like an alligator or a turtle. They live in the water full time for the most part.
Oh,
And there was uh, there was a run-in with the snake back in the late 1990s, where we found the snake here on our property. And we did a film with National Geographic about it, and a local, pretty famous herpetologist named Joe Wazalewski, who's a dear family friend of ours and very renowned, reptile expert worldwide. So aside from that, native species, um, we were in Big Cypress, my wife and I. This is maybe around 10 years ago now. And the mink, the Everglades mink, is something that a lot of people presently think, well, that's a fairy tale. There's no such thing as mink in the Everglades anymore. We were on an airboat coming back from Big Cypress, where the Cypress meets the River of Grass. And it was the time of year when they have young offspring. And we saw I would assume, mother mink with two itty bitty little babies. I'm talking the size of mice in a spot where we just happened to stop randomly outside of an airboat trail. And we got some incredible pictures, and my wife absolutely fell in love with them. And it was so overwhelming for her that she actually cried there at the spot because we finally saw a mink for the first time in our lifetime in the wild, and that was incredible.
that's really incredible. And are there any myths or mysteries, legends that you can tell me of?
Yes, and certainly the most famous, hands down, is called the skunk ape. The skunk ape is the Sasquatch or Bigfoot of the Everglades. There are many people that genuinely believe that they have heard, seen, or smelled this creature. There are footprints, air samples, and scat samples that have been collected by numerous individuals over the last millennia, um, and we we're hopeful skeptics that there is something in the Everglades that God created that hasn't been truly defined or found by man yet. Whether or not if the skunk ape actually exists, we don't know for sure because nobody's ever captured one. But there are signs and there is evidence that there is something lurking in the Everglades that nobody knows what the heck it is. And it is a bipedal ape related creature, according to the hair and scat samples that have been checked by numerous laboratories. There's something out there. We just don't know what the heck it is.
Oh, that's really mysterious. Wow.
It
And
is.
what about climate change? Has things changed over the years? The climate? How
So,
future of the Everglades?
climate change is a sincere concern for everybody globally, especially near the coastlines. You know, they say that over 85% of the world's population lives within 3 miles of the coastline. And I think that's actually a true number or somewhere very close to that. So if sea level changes more than 2 or 3 feet, we're going to lose a lot of that habitable coastline on a global scale, not to mention all the islands, those small islands that are very low lying.
Yes.
So climate change is something that we have to really consider. Here in South Florida, especially, the Everglades is a very flat, low-lying landscape. The flat top edge where the grass grows of the Everglades sits only 3 feet above sea level. So if the sea level were to rise just 1 to 2 feet from where it is now, not only would the sea level threaten during a storm or high, unnaturally high water level from say a supermoon, um, the aquifer. The Everglades is a place where we don't just have water on the surface; we have a huge cavern of water underground called the aquifer, and we have one main aquifer. The name is the Biscayne Aquifer that provides water to over 9 million people every single day. And the Everglades is responsible for recharging that aquifer as the water trickles down through the earth and spreads out, and then the wells, which go down from either homes or the city or agricultural fields, those wells go down and plug into that aquifer below the ground, and they vacuum water out, pump water out that aquifer nonstop. So if the sea level were to rise just 1 foot higher than it is today, our aquifer becomes saline, salt. And we have a major issue there because there is not anywhere near enough desalinization possible to supply all the agricultural fields, the municipal demand, and all of the private home demand here in South Florida. The cost of water would be astronomical, and it would be devastating to the South Florida economy and ecology. So we are hoping that we're near the end of an elliptical pattern, where it's not just it doesn't just move in a circle where we see times change on a climate level. It's typically more of an oblong, elliptical pattern, and we're hoping that we're near one of the ends of that elliptical pattern, and this is a rapid shift back to a long sense of normalcy. And I firmly, personally feel like that's where we're at on a climate standard. And I feel that because geologically, if you do geological samples, the only thing really older than the Bible that we have to go by as a standard is geology and archaeology, of course. But when you do geological surveys and you dig down into the earth, you find these different layers that are in patterns. Those patterns dictate a specific time period where things were in balance and out of balance, in balance and out of balance, in balance and out of balance. And we are near one of those short windows where things are out of balance for a while. The Everglades, since the last ice age, the Everglades has been under the ocean 2 times, and it happens around every 36 to 3,800 years. We're not far from that again.
Well, I hope that the Everglades survive because it's one unique ecosystem, one of the most unique in the world, I would say. And so
Certainly.
I would like to know, okay, when visitors go and see you, what are they mostly surprised of when they get there?
The air quality,
All right.
the air quality,
Okay.
just a natural oxygen saturation from all of the green vegetation. The air quality here is very good. Then you have the vast savanna of the Everglades with endless views of the horizon, beautiful green grass, blue skies, and then the transition from night to day or day to night when the sky changes colors. People are just mesmerized by the natural beauty. And of course, while they're here, the ability to observe nature up close and personal and be educated about it, that creates a life experience that people get to take home with them and share. And we're very fortunate in the fact that most of our clientele basis is direct word of mouth, referrals, and repeat. We've got great people that choose to come and see the Everglades at Max Fish Camp on a regular basis.
Answering one single word, which is your favorite Everglades animal? One word. One.
The alligator.
Okay. And favorite season of the Everglades?
The spring drought. Our springtime.
Okay.
The early spring drawdown period of the water.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Why?
Well, because our western expanse from here is endless, and my eastern expanse, we see the city. So to watch the sunrise from here, it is beautiful to watch the sky change colors, but you see much less because we're on the eastern side of the Everglades. You see much less of the natural beauty in the mornings than you do in the evenings.
Well, I'm gonna go and see you and hope I can be there for sunset. I promise you I'll be there.
I can't
But
wait for you to
listen,
come.
if the Everglades could speak to the whole world, what message do you think the Everglades will say to the world?
Take care of Mother Nature, and Mother Nature will take care of you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes. And I have a saying in all my shows that I do, TV shows, that in Spanish is despertando la conciencia del individuo, awakening the consciousness of an individual, of the people, and the world is born. And I really think so, that we have to
That
awaken
makes good sense.
that consciousness. So thank you so very much. And we're going to invite you to one of our TV shows, but this is our first episode of the podcast. So I hope that, we're going to be with you and we're going to learn so many secrets from you. I'm going to put them on screen. So thank you so much. And tell your friends and tell everybody to watch us. Okay?
I will.
Okay.
I will. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Marshall. It's been
You're
a
welcome.
real pleasure and an honor having you on our first episode of the Best Kept Secrets of the Everglades. Thank you. This was a wonderful first introduction, The Best Kept Secrets, the podcast #1 with Marshall Jones. But we're going to continue with many more each week. So please subscribe to The Best Kept Secrets of our podcast. It's the preamble to our next TV show that is going to be airing with a lot of series from The Best Kept Secrets. Thank you. Goodbye.